Buhari's supporters were celebrating in Abuja even before the official results were in. To them, there was no doubt their 76-year-old leader was going to win.
As a youth of Nigeria, I believe this is the way forward to this country and to my generation. And that is why we choose to bring him back for the second time.
The voter turnout was the lowest it's been in decades. Analysts blame this on the vote being delayed, intimidation at some polling stations, and lack of interest in the candidates. Buhari responded by promising to bring people together.
The new administration will intensify its efforts in security, restructuring the economy, and fighting corruption. We will strive to strengthen our unity and inclusiveness so that no section or group will feel left behind or left out.
But critics say those are promises he failed to deliver in his first term as president. Unemployment has surged from 6.4% at the end of 2014 to a record 23%. Under Buhari, Nigeria's stock market became the world's worst performer after falling more than 50%. And last year, the number of Nigerians living on less than $2 a day grew to 87 million, surpassing India as having the most people living in extreme poverty. Buhari also faces a daunting task of getting Nigeria's economy back on its feet since coming out of a recession in 2017. It struggled to stay afloat after a 2015 collapse in oil prices significantly cut oil revenues and investments. In his second term, Buhari, who is also the petroleum minister, has pledged to revive the refineries with private sector funding. He says he'll root out corruption in state-owned oil companies. He also wants to focus on infrastructure spending and empowering small businesses. Far from the euphoria in Buhari's camps are Nigerians who are looking for a change in leadership.
We are not feeling good that this man is still continuing. People are not happy over it. Everything is so expensive. Everything is expensive. People are facing hardship, and it still continue. People are not happy at all. We are not happy.
Those unhappy Nigerians now have 4 years to see whether Buhari can deliver on his promises. And they'll be the first to tell you he's made them before and failed. Laila Humaira, TRT World.
Well, let's get more on the story now with Judith Tyson in London. She's a research fellow at the Overseas Development Institute. Welcome back to the program, Judith. Is this a good outcome for Nigeria's economy, which, as we know, has been suffering a slowdown over the last few years?
Well, I think there's quite a big difference between the two candidates. In particular, Buhari was very focused on reviving the economy through the public and the sort of government-led recovery, as opposed to Atiku, who was much more private sector focused. So I guess the question really is, it's not about which policy is better, but which will deliver prosperity in Nigeria most effectively.
Yes, and who do you believe is the right man for the job? Is Buhari the man to do this, or his opponent, Atiku?
Well, I think, as you were saying in your report, his economic record to date has been pretty poor. He certainly had bad luck in his first presidency because of the collapse of the oil price, which gave a total beating to the Nigerian economy. But he also made some significant mistakes in relation to economic policy, and particularly things like refusing to float the Naira, for example, some of the FX restrictions which hammered the manufacturing sector. And he's also continuing to refuse to sign up to the free trade agreement with the African Union, and I think those policies were widely seen as making the recession much worse than it needed to be. So I think what would be interesting is whether he's able to back away from that and maybe meet Atiku's policies a little bit more in the centre around private sector development.
Yes, Muhammadu Buhari's refusal to sign up to that African Union free trade agreement was an interesting one, seeing as though Nigeria's economy is Africa's largest. Do you think he'll have a change of heart this time round then?
I think it'd be interesting to see because essentially what has happened was Nigeria initially agreed that they would be one of the signatories to the agreement, but Buhari came under a lot of pressure from lobbying groups, particularly from the manufacturing sector in Nigeria, and then backed off joining the free trade agreement. It's clearly a big gap for all of Africa if Nigeria don't change. They are, of course, the largest economy in the region, and particularly for West Africa and some of the smaller countries where Nigeria is one of their key trading partners, it's a problem. And I think what's also interesting is whether Buhari will feel pressure to do that, because otherwise South Africa are going to take the lead, and rather than Nigeria in terms of the political leadership of the African Union and of some of the free trade agreements that we're seeing emerge on the continent.
You listed earlier a few of the mistakes that Muhammadu Buhari made in his first term in terms of dealing with the economy. Do you think he's taken those lessons on board and will apply them in the second term?
I think what was interesting, actually, it was during the election, the policy gambits that they're putting forward was very much more of the same. And I think some of that is positive. So, for example, there's been a significant investment programme in infrastructure. Infrastructure is a real constraint on economic growth in Nigeria, particularly things like the electricity, for example. There's repeated power cuts. Electricity is also very expensive, and those are big constraints on the development of the manufacturing sector. But what we didn't really see is sort of a change of orientation towards supporting businesses more strongly. Again, you mentioned his support for small businesses, so that has been positive. But really, transforming the Nigerian economy needs much larger firms to emerge, and be regional or even global players.
OK, we'll see how he performs second time around. Judith Tyson in London, thank you as always.